Not fighting, not flying, not storming beaches, but listening, around the clock, to the static crackled voices and Morse code of the enemy. They were the Y stations, and without them, Bletchley Park would have had nothing to decode. Here's the piece people forget when they talk about the codebreakers. Alan Turing and his team at Bletchley Park get the credit, and they earned it, but codebreakers can't break a code they never hear. Before any message could be decrypted, it had to be intercepted, and that job fell to a scattered network of listening posts stretching from the English coast to Scotland, from Malta to the Middle East, and eventually to outposts across the entire British Empire. The name came from something almost embarrassingly simple. In signal shorthand, the letter Y sounded like wireless, so intercept work became Y work, and the stations that did it became the Y stations. By the height of the war, there were more than 50 of them. Picture a typical station. Sometimes it was a requisitioned country house with rows of aerials strung across the lawn, and sometimes it was a converted seaside hotel, its guest rooms stripped out and packed with radio receivers. Chicksands Priory, a medieval estate in Bedfordshire, became one of the most important army intercept sites in the country. Beaumanoir Hall, another English manor, did the same for the Army's special wireless groups. And at Scarborough on the Yorkshire coast, low buildings faced the North Sea, straining to catch German naval traffic the moment it left the transmitter. The people inside were rarely who you'd expect. Yes, there were trained servicemen and women, members of the Royal Corps of Signals, the Women's Royal Naval Service, the RAF's Y Service. But there was also a second, quieter workforce, civilians. Amateur radio operators who'd had their transmitters confiscated the moment war broke out, for security reasons, were asked instead to simply listen. They became known as the Voluntary Interceptors, and at their peak there were around 1,500 of them, working from spare rooms and garden sheds across Britain, each one bound to total secrecy. A Voluntary Interceptor's evening didn't look dramatic. It looked like a person hunched over a homemade receiver, headphones clamped on, a pencil moving fast across a logbook, transcribing strings of Morse code that meant nothing to them personally. They didn't know what the messages said, and most of them never would. They simply copied down the dots and dashes exactly as they came, sealed the transcript in an envelope, and posted it, yes, posted it, through the ordinary mail, to a nondescript address in London. From there it was relayed on to Bletchley Park. That's the detail that tends to stop people. In an age of radar and cryptography and the birth of the computer, one of the most important links in the entire chain ran through the Royal Mail. The work itself was brutally demanding. Operators worked rotating shifts through the night because enemy traffic didn't keep office hours. They had to distinguish a genuine signal from atmospheric noise, hold a steady hand through hours of repetitive code, and catch every character, because a single missed letter could scramble an entire decrypted message on the other end. Speed mattered as much as accuracy. The Germans changed their Enigma settings every day at midnight, which meant Bletchley needed fresh intercepts fast, or the previous day's hard-won progress became worthless. And the sheer volume was staggering. At its peak, the Y service was pulling in tens of thousands of intercepted messages a day, funneled from stations scattered across half the globe. Every one of those messages needed a listener, and every listener needed to be trained, trusted, and utterly silent about what they did. That secrecy is what makes this story so strange in hindsight. These were neighbors, shopkeepers, teenagers barely out of school, all sworn under the Official Secrets Act, all told the same thing. Never speak of this, not to your family, not to your closest friends, not for the rest of your life. Many of them didn't. Some voluntary interceptors kept the secret for over 30 years, until Bletchley Park's work was finally declassified in the 1970s. Their own children learned what they'd done from history books, not from them. The payoff of all that quiet, disciplined listening is hard to overstate. Intercepted signals fed directly into the ultra-intelligence program, the material that let the Allies read a startling amount of German high command traffic throughout the war. Historians have credited that intelligence with shortening the war by a significant margin, with some estimates putting it at close to 2 years. Every one of those decrypted messages started the same way, as raw Morse, caught out of the air by someone sitting alone with headphones on, writing fast, in the dark. There's a particular kind of heroism in that. No medals, no headlines, no dramatic charge, just the discipline to sit still, night after night, and get every character right, because you understood, even without knowing the content, that it mattered. By the war's end, the Y stations had quietly become one of the largest signals intelligence operations the world had ever seen, and almost nobody outside the system knew they existed. That's really the through line of this whole story. The war's most consequential intelligence victories didn't start in a briefing room. They started with someone listening.